Welcome back to the space of stillness, where ancient Zen stories meet the breath of modern life. Here each story is not merely a teaching but a journey inward where we learn to let go to become light, to see in order to truly understand, and to love without the need to hold on. In today's world, we are more connected than ever yet lonelier than ever. We talk to hundreds of people, yet there are things no one seems to understand within us. We love, yet fear losing. We help, yet feel hurt. We give, yet secretly hope to receive. Relationships meant to connect sometimes become mirrors reflecting the unhealed parts within us. That is why the Buddha taught every relationship is a lesson of the mind. No one truly belongs to anyone. We meet only for a moment meant for self-reflection. And when the lesson is learned, the path between two souls naturally parts not because the bond has ended, but because it has been fulfilled. Letting go in a relationship doesn't mean abandoning someone, but releasing the image we've created of them. When we stop demanding love, blossoms. When we stop controlling, we begin to understand. And when we stop clinging, we finally learn how to love in the journey of Zen tales you're about to hear. Each story is a mirror reflecting how we love, how we suffer, and how we find our way back to compassion. From the cracked bell, which reveals beauty in imperfection, to the full teacup, reminding us to empty ourselves to understand, and the two monks and the woman by the river, teaching us to set the past down, all lead to one truth. When you stop demanding love, blossoms. Allow yourself to relax your shoulders and let your thoughts soften. Tonight, within the rhythm of your breath, we'll step together into the world of ancient Zen stories, where each of the Buddha's teachings becomes a cool stream, washing away the weariness of the heart. Each story is a doorway, opening a new light within you where the mind rests and sleep deepens. And now, let us begin that journey with the first story, where the light of compassion shines without distinction, and true love reveals the Buddha nature within every form of humanity. As the early wind stirs the pond outside, the porch ripples gently, reflecting the pale moon dissolving behind drifting clouds. The distant temple bell sounds like a whisper, reminding us every image upon the water is but a reflection. Nothing truly belongs to us. In life, there are those who pass by and stir our hearts, and some relationships make us want both to hold on and to let go. We call that love, affection, karma. But in truth, every bond between two souls is a mirror, helping us see ourselves more clearly. Many have asked, why do some people feel familiar the very first time we meet? Or why do some relationships hurt more the harder we try to hold them? These questions are not philosophical. They are deeply human, born from the longing to be seen, loved, and accepted. But if love arises from possession, it will eventually become a chain. Love without wisdom turns into attachment. Love guided by understanding, that is compassion. There is an old story from the Buddha's time, a story where the light of compassion reached even the place thought to be beyond light. One day, while traveling through the prosperous city of Vesali, the Buddha and his monks were invited by a courtesan named Ambapali. She was famed for her beauty and charm, and her home was often filled with powerful men seeking fleeting pleasures, leaving her with a void nothing could fill. When she heard the Buddha was arriving, something inside her stirred a quiet voice calling from deep within. Without hesitation, she invited the Buddha and his monks to her mango grove for a meal. The wealthy elders of Vasali were furious, a courtesan inviting the enlightened one. How disgraceful they offered lavish rewards if the Buddha would visit them instead. But he simply smiled and said, "I have already accepted her invitation. A promise once given cannot be withdrawn." The next day, in the stillness of morning, the Buddha arrived at Ambapali's grove. No music, no wine, no luxury, only pure offerings and quiet reverence. Kneeling before him, tears in her eyes, she said, "Blessed One, I have lived a life of mistakes. People praised my body, but no one ever saw my soul. Please show me the way to peace." The Buddha looked at her with gentle clarity. "Ambapali, everyone carries light. It is only hidden by the clouds of ignorance. No one is beyond awakening, only those who stop and turn inward will see." Those words ignited something deep within her. For the first time, she was seen not through desire or judgment, but through understanding. She wept as if the long drought of her heart had finally ended. Soon after, Ambapali offered her grove to the monastic community, renounced her wealth, and joined the order. She became one of the first nuns respected for her wisdom and perseverance. Her story is not just about one woman, but about the meeting of darkness and light within us all. Each of us carries parts. We try to hide our mistakes, weaknesses, and shadows. Yet the light of compassion excludes no one. It does not seek clean places to shine. It illuminates the darkest corners. In the eyes of the Buddha, there are no sinners or saints, only souls awakening at different stages. When we see this, we judge less and love more. Zen teaches, "If you see a lotus blooming from mud, do not despise the mud, for without mud, there is no lotus." Ambapali was that lotus, and the Buddha, with a heart free of judgment, helped her see the fragrance already within. In our relationships, when we learn to see others this way, love stops being control and becomes liberation. Modern psychology calls this compassionate awareness, the mindful, non-judgmental recognition of another's being. When we look at someone with such awareness, the brain's fear centers quiet down and empathy deepens. In other words, compassion heals both the other and ourselves. In relationships, we often try to fix people to make them less angry, less flawed, less hurtful. But this effort often comes from ego, because it's hard to face the parts of ourselves their behavior reflects. When we stop needing to fix others, we begin to understand they are the lesson teaching us how to love without conditions. Perhaps they came to teach us patience or to reveal our pride. Perhaps they came to hurt us so we could learn what compassion truly means. True love doesn't try to make others better. It helps them see their own inner light. And when they change, it is not from our pressure, but because they have been seen with understanding. A Harvard study once found that in close relationships, growth comes not from arguments won, but from being able to see each other without judgment. When we can say, "I understand why you are this way, healing begins. As night falls, you can practice this simple meditation. Sit quietly or lie down. Breathe in deeply. Recall someone who once angered or hurt you. As you exhale, gently say within me, "You be at peace." You don't have to force love, just open the space for understanding. When understanding arises, pain eases. When understanding arises, relationships that seemed broken become our greatest teachers. Let your breath carry you through the memories of the day, the conversations, the glances, the small wounds left unhealed. With every inhale, smile gently. I am learning to see with light. With every exhale, let emotions dissolve like mist on the lake. Sleep comes not when you force it, but when resistance fades. When compassion flows, the body and mind both rest. Sometimes those who hurt us most are the very ones who help us see the darkness we still need to heal. Like Ambapali, once we are seen through the light of non-judgment, we rediscover ourselves. And just like that light, the next story will remind you. True love doesn't need perfection. Only when we release the urge to fix others can we finally see that both they and we have always been whole. Evening settled over the small riverside village. The sun sank slowly behind the distant mountains, leaving streaks of fading gold across the old tiled roofs, like a thin layer of worn light. The air grew thinner. Only the soft crackle from the pottery kiln, the whisper of wind through the bamboo grove, and the earthy scent of damp soil lingered in the courtyard. Before the spinning wheel sat an old potter silently at work. His rough hands shaped the soft clay with calm precision, each movement unhurried, as if he were speaking to the earth itself. Every turn of the wheel was a breath, every pot a wordless meditation. That evening, the air felt different because a stranger had come by. He was a young man, thin-faced, eyes heavy with unspoken sorrow. He sat down beside the fire, gazing at the drying pots, and said softly, his voice dissolving into the smoke, "Master, have you ever loved someone so deeply that you wanted them to become perfect? I only wanted to help to make them better. But the harder I tried, the more everything broke apart." His question rang out like the sound of pottery shattering on the floor, small, yet enough to still the whole room. The potter looked up, his eyes kind, yet deep as the riverbed. After a long silence, he turned back to his wheel, his hands continuing their steady rhythm. "You know," he said slowly, "clay only becomes a pot when it has faced fire. And that fire never burns the same for everyone. Some pieces crack, some turn out smooth, but each carries its own beauty, each has its rightful place." The wheel kept spinning steady as time itself. The sunset dimmed, leaving only the glow of the kiln, and within the young man's heart, something cracked, then quietly began to heal. Long ago, in a small village famed for pottery, there lived a master craftsman who had spent more than half his life beside the kiln. He was known not only for his skill, but for the depth of his spirit. People said every piece he made carried a soul, not just because it was beautiful, but because he shaped it with understanding. One day, he began sculpting a large statue, a serene figure of a Zen master in meditation. He worked with utmost care day after day, from dawn until moonrise. It was to be his life's masterpiece, a symbol of peace he wished to leave behind. When the statue was finally fired, he brought it out joyfully into the light, only to find a thin crack running down the right shoulder. It was hairline, but unmistakable. Disheartened, he considered breaking it apart, yet each time he tried, he paused, simply staring at it for a long while. The next day, a storm came. In a flash of lightning, he saw rain seeping through the crack, glimmering like a silver thread. He stopped quietly, moved. The following morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, a single ray passed through that same crack, casting a shimmering glow on the wall like a faint halo. He sat there silently, then smiled. From that day on, the potter stopped repairing cracked pots. He left them as they were painting the fractures with gold lacquer as a gentle confession. Beauty lives not in perfection, but in acceptance. When people asked him why, he said, "Because those cracks are where the light enters." The story spread throughout the village. Everyone who heard it felt moved, realizing that even clay, something seemingly lifeless, could teach humans the art of compassion. The story of the potter is in truth a metaphor for all of us. We are like those clay pots. The earth is our mind, fire is karma, and the sculpting hands are the experiences of life. No one is without cracks. The difference is only whether we hide them or dare to face them. In Zen, it is said, when the mind no longer resists suffering, suffering becomes the doorway to awakening. The cracks in our lives are not there to make us ugly, but to let the light in. Likewise, in relationships, when we accept others with their flaws, love becomes deeper, more real. We often believe love means helping someone become better, but that better often reflects our own expectations. We want them to fit our inner mold, and when they don't, we suffer. The Buddha taught that attachment begins when we try to control, but through the wisdom of non-self, we see that each person is walking their own path with their own karma and lessons. No one needs fixing only to be seen. In modern psychology, this aligns with the concept of radical acceptance. Not resignation, but the end of resistance to reality. When we stop trying to change others, our energy transforms into peace. And that peace, in turn, inspires change not through force, but through understanding. Psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "When someone feels deeply heard and unconditionally accepted, that is the moment they begin to change." This is the spirit of Buddhist compassion: to love without possession, to understand without control. True love doesn't need perfection. It's not for display, not for comparison, not for proof. It only needs to be lived truthfully, even when accompanied by mistakes, wounds, and misunderstandings. When we look at loved ones with judgment, relationships grow weary. But when we see them as the potter saw his cracked statue, with gratitude for the very crack that teaches patience and understanding, then love becomes light. A study at Stanford University found that practicing mindful compassion helps stabilize heart rate, reduce stress responses, and boost happiness hormones. In other words, when we learn to accept others, we heal ourselves. Think of someone who once disappointed you. Maybe they spoke harshly, acted wrongly, or caused pain. But if you look deeply, you'll see they too carry cracks, unhealed wounds of their own. And perhaps through your compassion, light may enter through those cracks. When we stop trying to fix others, love returns to its true nature, unconditional, unmeasured, expecting nothing. It becomes the love of an awakened heart to love, in order to understand, not to possess. At night, before you close your eyes, you can try this small meditation. Breathe in deeply, breathe out softly. Imagine a clay pot in your heart. Across its surface are tiny cracks, memories, wounds, imperfections. Do not erase them. Instead, imagine each filled with golden light, the light of compassion. Then bring to mind someone you once wanted to fix, someone you loved but could not understand. Let that light flow toward them, not to change, but to illuminate. Inhale and whisper inwardly, I understand you. Exhale gently, I don't need you to be perfect. As the mind releases, the breath softens, and sleep comes naturally, for in that moment, you move in rhythm with life itself, without resistance, without demand, without grasping. Love is no longer something to do. It becomes a state of being. In the fading light of the kiln, the old potter gazed at his cracked statue and smiled as if he finally understood. Beauty does not lie in the flawless, but in the ability to smile at the flaws. And on the path of the heart, only when we face loss, pain, and death do we begin to learn the true meaning of love. The next story tells of a father who lost his child and his journey through grief to find peace again. Because sometimes loss itself is the deepest form of love. Only when we dare to suffer without running away, love does not fade, it transforms into compassion. That morning, mist covered the old tiled roofs in white. In the small garden behind the temple, the last cherry blossoms fell quietly to the ground, fragile as the breath of something fading away. When a soft wind passed through the petals, left the branches no sound, no resistance, just a gentle release as natural as it was meant to be. A father sat on the temple porch. His hands clenched, his eyes deep and hollow, as if holding an ocean within. His son had just passed away after a long illness. The father came here silently, not speaking, not crying, only gazing at the courtyard blanketed with fallen leaves. After a long while, he whispered, "Master, I have lost everything. How can I go on living when my heart no longer exists?" It is a question humanity has asked for thousands of years. When we lose someone we love, we don't just lose that person, we lose a part of ourselves. Many believe that suffering is proof of love, that the deeper the love, the greater the pain. But in the Buddha's teaching, loss is not the end of love, it is its most profound expression. Because only when we dare to walk through pain without running away can love transform into compassion. Long ago, in a small village at the foot of a mountain, there lived a kind and hard-working man who loved his only son more than anything. The child was his sole joy after his wife passed away young. Every morning, father and son went to the fields together. The boy ran around laughing, his smile clear as dew. Life was simple yet full of laughter. One autumn, the boy fell gravely ill. The father searched for every healer, prayed at every shrine, but nothing helped. Within days, the boy took his last breath in his father's arms. The small home, once filled with warmth, suddenly felt empty, as though the fire in his heart had died with his child. Days later, the father carried his son's ashes and walked miles to visit a Zen master who lived on the mountain. When he arrived, he fell to his knees and wept. "Master, I can't bear this. Every time I see the yard where he used to play, my heart shatters. Please, help me forget this pain." The Zen master looked at him, calm eyes filled with compassion. "You wish to forget," he said gently, "which means you are afraid. But do you know that when you fear pain, you also fear love itself?" The father looked confused. The master led him to the temple gate where a still pond reflected the clouds above. "Look," said the master. "When the wind blows, the surface ripples and the reflection of the clouds disappears. But have the clouds truly gone? They have only left the water's surface. Your son has not vanished. His reflection has simply left the surface of this life." The father was silent. Tears streamed down his face, not the violent sobs of despair, but soft drops like a quiet rain. "But I miss him so much," he said. "I want to hear his voice, to hold his hand just once more." The master smiled gently and placed a fallen flower in his palm. "Can you hold this flower forever? No master, it will wither. Then if you truly love it, would you cling to it or let it go?" The father bowed his head. "I would let it go, so it may return to the earth." "Exactly," the master said. "True love allows what we cherish to return to where it belongs." After several days at the temple, the father began to meditate with the monks. At first, his longing made it impossible to sit still, but gradually, each breath became a thread connecting him back to life. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the bamboo, he heard a bird singing and felt warmth return to his chest. In that moment, he realized his son had never truly left. He was there in the wind, in the dew, in the beating of his heart. When the father descended the mountain, he no longer carried the urn, only a smile. That story teaches us something simple yet often forgotten. Loss is a natural part of love. If we never loved, we would never know pain. And without pain, we would never understand compassion. The Buddha once taught love and suffering are two sides of the same coin. When we love, the heart opens. When we lose, it remains open, but now in a different form, from possession to release, from attachment to understanding. In Zen it is said, "One who loves without ever knowing pain has not yet loved deeply enough." But pain does not mean remaining in sorrow. Pain is a doorway, and when we step through it, what we find on the other side is compassion. Modern psychology agrees. Healing from loss is not about forgetting, but about redefining the relationship with the one who is gone. They no longer exist in form, but live on in our memory, in the qualities they helped awaken within us. When someone we love dies, the mind gradually shifts from pain over loss to gratitude for having loved. This is transformation. The same truth the Buddha taught: love does not disappear. It merely changes form. Pain is a great teacher. It shows us impermanence, fragility, and the extraordinary resilience of the human heart. When we learn to sit with pain instead of running from it, we begin to see that beneath the tears lies a spring of understanding. A study at Yale University found that people who allow themselves to cry and fully face their grief recover emotionally twice as fast as those who force themselves to stay positive. Tears don't weaken, they cleanse. When they flow, the heart becomes clear again. In life, none of us escapes loss, a loved one, a friendship, a bond, or even our own youth. Each departure leaves an empty space, but instead of fearing it, we can learn to bow before impermanence, as the father in the story did. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It is the acceptance that everything has its time. When a petal falls, it is not the end of the tree, but a promise of new bloom. Love is the same. When the image of someone fades, love does not vanish, it returns to its vast original form. It is no longer "I love this person," but simply "I know how to love." Remember, love is never erased by time. It only changes places from an outer form to an inner presence. If you've lost someone, sit quietly for a moment. Take a deep breath and whisper within, "Thank you for walking with me for a while." In that moment, pain and gratitude become one, and a gentle peace arises. When night falls, if your heart still holds an unhealed space, allow yourself to sit in the dark. Inhale, feel the sadness, welcome it like a friend. Exhale, release their image like letting a flower drift down a river. Inhale, remember what beauty they left within you. Exhale, send them peace wherever they may be. Do not try to forget. Forgetting is avoidance. Remember with gratitude that softens the heart, while forgetting only hardens it. When the mind grows, still sleep comes like cool water washing away the dust of sorrow. If tonight you cannot sleep because of longing, let your own breath be the answer. For that breath is proof that you are still alive, still loving, and still learning how to let your love become as calm as a quiet lake. Loss teaches us that no one can stay forever. Yet the beauty is this: when someone leaves, they leave a part of themselves within us, just as the father carried his child's warmth in every heartbeat. From that, we understand every meeting has its limit, every companionship its end. The next story will tell of two friends and a bamboo bridge, a reminder that nothing lasts forever, not even companionship. Everyone who comes into our life is like a bridge built for us to cross the river and then to part. What remains is gratitude for the path we once walked together. Early morning clouds still curled around the mountain peaks, and thick mist rested on the surface of the lake. The sound of the temple bell echoed softly in the cool, moist air. Along the dirt path leading down to the valley, two friends walked side by side, their footsteps blending with the wind, sometimes talking, sometimes silent, as if each carried something unspoken. They had traveled together for many years on the path of practice, sharing hardship, sitting through storms, dividing each bowl of rice, each sip of water. To others, they were the image of true friendship between two seekers of the way. But like every river at some bend, the waters must part and flow in different directions. This story begins with a simple question. How do we accept it when someone who once walked beside us suddenly takes another path? Because not only friendship, but everything we believe to be permanent youth, faith attachment will one day change. In life, everyone has someone who walks with them for a while. Sometimes it's a lover, sometimes a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger who appeared just when we needed them most. And then one day they leave. We think we've lost something, but perhaps they were only a bridge meant to help us cross the river. There once were two young monks who left their monastery to travel and teach the Dharma. They were close as brothers, preaching, helping villagers, living with simplicity and compassion. One day, a heavy rain fell. The path led them to a small river, but the old bamboo bridge across it was weak and slippery. The water rose high, the planks creaked, and the wind shook the bridge. They stopped. The first monk said, "This bridge might break. Let's wait until the water goes down." The other monk watched the rushing stream, then smiled. "If we wait, the water may never stop. Everything keeps flowing. As long as our heart is steady, the bridge will not break." Then he stepped forward. Each step was light yet firm. The wind blew, the bridge swayed, but he walked calmly across. Seeing this, his friend followed, anxious yet admiring. Halfway across, they heard a cry for help. A woman was being swept away, clinging to a floating log. Without hesitation, the monk who went first turned back and leapt into the water. He pulled her up and guided her safely across. By the time they reached the shore, all three were soaked, but unharmed. The woman bowed deeply in gratitude and went her way. The monks continued their journey. After a while, the second monk frowned and said, "Brother, we are monks. We're not allowed to touch women. Why did you do that?" The other smiled gently. "I left that woman back at the riverbank, but you're still carrying her on your shoulders." The second monk fell silent. They kept walking. Yet from that day on, the road between them grew longer, not in distance, but in the quiet wall rising inside. Years passed. Each went his own way. One became a well-known Zen master. The other stayed by the riverside temple. When the old bamboo bridge had long decayed, the Zen master returned. He found his old friend sitting on the porch, hair turned white. They looked at each other for a long time. Then the friend said softly, "I used to resent you, thinking you broke the precepts. Now I see what I held too tightly was the very rope that bound me. And you, because you let go, were free." The master smiled, eyes resting on the river. The water still flowed, the wind still passed. The old bridge was gone, but another bridge had been built between them, not of bamboo, but of understanding. That story is simple, yet within it lies a profound truth. Nothing lasts forever, not even companionship. The Buddha taught, "All conditioned things are impermanent." This truth does not apply only to objects, but to every relationship. People meet through causes and conditions, and part when those conditions have run their course. Like two boats meeting at sea, traveling together for a stretch, then drifting toward their own horizons. When we don't understand this, we suffer because we want everything to stay the same, for someone not to change for a friend, to remain close for love, never to fade. But life is a flowing river. The more we try to hold it, the more it slips away. The monk in the story taught us a lesson about non-attachment. He helped the woman out of compassion, unconcerned with appearances or rules. After helping, he let go. His companion, trapped by the concept of breaking the rule, carried the weight in his mind. One released through action, therefore felt light. The other clung through thought, therefore felt burdened. The Dharma does not tell us to reject the world, but to see deeply, to know what is real and what is only form. Compassion does not oppose discipline. If the mind is pure, every action is pure. But when the mind is filled with judgment, even strict discipline becomes a barrier between self and others. In life, this is true as well. Often we don't suffer because someone leaves, we suffer because we refuse to accept that they must. Every companionship has a limit, and that is its beauty. A bridge only has meaning when we have the courage to cross it. If we stand still, the bridge serves no purpose. Everyone who enters your life is a bridge. Some teach you to trust, some teach you to let go. Some appear only to reflect a part of yourself you needed to see. No one is accidental. No one is out of place. When someone leaves, we often ask, why? But in the way, the question is not, why did they go? It is, what did I learn from their going? Through the lens of impermanence, we see that every relationship is a temporary gift, and gratitude is the only way to keep it alive. A study from Harvard University found that people who can accept change in relationships have better emotional health, are less prone to depression, and more forgiving. Science is only confirming what the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago, that suffering is born from attachment. So, when someone leaves, don't call it loss, call it transition. They leave so you may grow. They leave so you may walk on your own. They leave so you may learn that love is not in holding, but in allowing. When night comes, if your heart still carries those who have gone, sit quietly for a moment. Inhale, recall their presence, not to blame, but to give thanks. Exhale, release gently, like placing a leaf upon the river. Inhale, feel the warmth of the memories. Exhale, whisper, may you be at peace. When you can do that, pain softens into the gentle energy of compassion, and sleep arrives like a kind friend. You don't need to erase anyone from your memory. Let them remain there, not as a chain, but as a part of the journey that helped you see yourself more clearly. Night is the time for release of people, of burdens, of the wish to hold on. For only with empty hands can we receive the light of tomorrow. Like the two friends by the river, each must one day take a different path. But if the heart knows gratitude, parting is no longer loss, it becomes a serene smile. And when the heart can smile at impermanence, we begin to see a deeper truth. To see the world clearly, we must first wipe the dust from the mirror of our own mind. The next story will open that lesson, for sometimes we do not see others wrongly, but only because the mirror within has not yet been cleaned. When the mind is clear, all things shine. When the mind is clouded, everyone we meet reflects only our own shadow. Early morning in the Zen monastery, dew still clung to the bamboo leaves. The first birds sang softly through the silence. The sun had not yet risen fully, only a faint light peeked over the distant mountains, casting pale rays across the main hall. A young novice stepped into the courtyard holding an old dusting cloth. He began wiping each door, each statue carefully as though he were polishing his own heart. But the more he wiped, the more he frowned. The dust seemed endless. He sighed. I keep cleaning, but the statue still looks dull. Maybe it's because the wind brings in dust every day. From afar, the old Zen master watched quietly and smiled. He asked, "What are you using to clean this cloth, master?" The master walked closer, took the cloth, and shook it gently. A thin cloud of dust rose into the sunlight. He said slowly, "If the cloth is dusty, the more you wipe, the duller the statue becomes. Before you clean the statue, clean your cloth first." The words were as light as a breeze, yet they awakened a long silence inside the novice's heart. In life, we are often like that young monk. When we see others' faults, we rush to clean them with advice, with judgment, with the desire for them to change. But we rarely stop to ask, is the cloth in my hand clean? The mind we use to correct others, is it not already covered in the dust of pride, hurt, or self-righteousness? That is the ancient paradox. We want the world to become pure, yet we try to purify it with a mind still clouded. The Buddha taught, those who see the faults of others but not their own are like one searching for the moon in water, forgetting to lift their head and look at the sky. When the mind is agitated, we see faults everywhere. When it grows still, the world naturally becomes gentle, reflecting our own inner calm. There is a short Zen story that holds a great lesson. Sometimes to clean the world, we only need to begin by cleaning our own cloth. Long ago, at the foot of a mist-covered mountain, there stood an ancient temple, fragrant with sandalwood. Its abbot was known not only for his wisdom, but for his attentiveness to small things. Each morning, he taught his disciples to clean the meditation hall, not merely to keep the temple spotless, but to train the mind. Among the young monks was a new novice, diligent, confident, full of energy. He worked tirelessly, always chasing perfection. But the harder he tried, the more easily he grew irritated. Whenever he cleaned, he would frown and mutter, "That statue is still dusty. That door isn't spotless." He often redid others' work, convinced he alone was truly careful. One morning, the master watched in silence. The next day, he called the novice over. "Today, I want you to clean the central Buddha statue the one generations of monks have revered." The boy felt proud. He polished every inch with meticulous care, scrubbing all morning. But strangely, the more he cleaned, the duller the statue became. Panicking, he ran to his teacher. "Master, I tried my best, but the statue looks worse. I don't understand." The master smiled and approached. He gently took the cloth, shook it, and a fine layer of dust scattered into the sunlight. Then he said softly, his voice deep yet kind, "When the cloth is dirty, the more you wipe, the duller it gets. To clean the statue, you must first clean the cloth." The novice bowed his head in silence. From that day on, every morning before he began cleaning, he washed the cloth by the well. Over time, not only did the Buddha statue shine brighter, his own eyes began to clear. Monks later said that he no longer rushed to point out others' mistakes. When he saw someone forget to wipe away dust, he simply smiled and helped quietly as if polishing his own heart. And when the morning sun lit the golden statue, people saw not only the brilliance of gold, but the radiance of a heart purified by humility. That story is still told today as a gentle reminder. Before trying to brighten the world, look first at the cloth in your hand. Has your mind truly been cleansed? The Master's words sound simple, but they are the essence of the way to correct others' faults. You must first correct your own. In daily life, the cloth is our mind, the mind that sees, judges, and acts. If it's stained by anger, pride, or jealousy, then whatever we do, no matter how well-intentioned, will leave smudges behind. We often say, "I'm only giving advice." But where does that advice come from? From compassion or from the ego that wants to be right? We say, "I just want to help." But are we actually trying to prove we're better? A mind not yet cleansed turns good intentions into control and kind words into sharp blades. Others can't feel our goodness, they only sense the shadow of our judgment. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Like dust on a mirror, the more one wipes with dirty hands, the dimmer it becomes." Only when the mind is pure can words and actions truly heal. Modern psychology agrees. When a person is under stress, the rational part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is suppressed, making them more likely to criticize and project their emotions onto others. In other words, we see in others the very things we haven't yet resolved in ourselves. So when someone annoys you, ask, "What part of me is like them?" That question is the key to freedom. Cleaning the mind doesn't mean escaping life or ignoring injustice. It means looking deeply and seeing clearly. When I'm angry with someone, what am I really angry about in myself? When I try to fix others, what am I avoiding fixing in me? Once we see this, judgment dissolves, leaving only understanding. And understanding is the root of compassion. A neuroscientist once said, "When people feel accepted, their brains release oxytocin, the chemical that makes them feel safe and open to change." That is exactly what the Buddha taught millennia ago. You cannot transform anyone through criticism, only through understanding and love. Cleaning the statue with a clean cloth is not just an act, it is a way of living. Before speaking of someone, pause and look at your mind. Before getting angry, ask, "Am I truly clear inside?" If your mind is dusty, wash it with the breath, with meditation, with gratitude. Because when the mind is clear, the world shines. Tonight, before you sleep, try a small practice. Inhale, feel the breath like cool water cleansing your mind. Exhale, release every urge to correct, change, or judge others. If someone has made you angry, smile gently and whisper, "Perhaps the dust in my heart has just been stirred." Let it settle. When you can do that, sleep will come light as a cloud. No restless thoughts, no inner arguments, only the steady rhythm of breathing and a quiet peace spreading through your body. Like the young monk in the story, each of us holds a cloth, a mind that knows how to wipe, reflect, and pause when it sees its own dust. Purifying the heart is not a task for one day, it is a lifelong journey. But with every washing, the mirror grows clearer and the heart grows lighter. When we learn to clean our own mind, the world naturally becomes more gentle. Those who once irritated us become our teachers, showing us ourselves And when the heart is polished, we finally see what made us suffer was never them, but the self that wanted to be greater. Then we understand why the Buddha said, "Pride destroys love." And that is where the next story will lead the story of the samurai and the Zen master. For only when we lay down the sword do we see that the other is not an enemy, but a lesson. As long as the mind still wants to win or be right, compassion cannot bloom. The path to wisdom always begins the same way, by lowering the sword and looking within. One late autumn afternoon, a gentle wind passed through the small garden behind the Zen monastery. Maple leaves drifted slowly, each spinning softly before touching the ground. The sky was hazy, and the air seemed to pause in one long, low note of silence. In that stillness, a man stood by the porch, gripping the hilt of his sword, his eyes filled with unease. He had traveled across many lands, winning countless battles. But that day, he stood before the old wooden gate of a small temple, not to fight, but to ask a simple question: how can I stop feeling angry? Sometimes the hardest battle is not conquering the enemy outside, but lowering the sword within oneself. It's easy to recognize when someone insults, betrays, or opposes us. But few realize that the true exhaustion comes from the self that always wants to win, to prove to be right. In our most painful relationships with partners, friends, co-workers, most suffering does not come from who's right or wrong, but from no one being willing to lower the sword of pride first. We often think, if I stay silent, I'll lose. But is that true? Or is it that by refusing to lower the sword, we've already lost our inner peace? The Buddha taught one who conquers himself is greater than one who conquers 1,000 enemies in battle. And that is what today's story reminds us of, the story of the samurai and the Zen master. Long ago, there was a samurai renowned throughout the land for his strength and pride. All who heard his name feared him. But as he aged, anger began to fill his heart. He despised those weaker than him and envied those stronger. One day he heard of an old Zen master who lived in a small forest temple, a man called the One Without Anger. The samurai scoffed. "No anger, ridiculous. I'll make him angry and prove he's just another fraud." He put on his armor, took his sword, and went to the temple. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he shouted, "Zen master, they say, you never get angry. Today, I've come to test you." The master was watering plants. He said nothing, only set the watering can down gently. The samurai yelled louder, "Are you ignoring me? I've cut down men far prouder than you." The master remained silent. He bent down, picked up a fallen leaf, and held it against the sunlight. "Do you see this leaf?" he asked softly. "No matter how strong the wind blows, it only falls when its time has come." The samurai frowned. "Are you trying to teach me philosophy? I didn't come here for riddles." The master looked deeply into his eyes and asked calmly, "Then why did you come?" The samurai froze. He had no answer. In that instant, his anger vanished like a flame losing its air. The master continued, "You came here holding a sword. I have only a watering can. You came ready to fight. I came only to water the plants. So tell me who is fighting whom." The samurai lowered his head. For the first time, his sword felt unbearably heavy. He placed it down and knelt on the ground. "Master," he said softly, "I've spent my life searching for enemies, never realizing the greatest one was within me." The master nodded and smiled. Only when you set down the sword, he said, can you see that the other was never your enemy, but a mirror reflecting yourself. It seems like a simple story, but it carries a profound lesson, a teaching about pride and compassion. Pride is the most deceptive armor of fear. When we're afraid of being hurt or belittled, we wear arrogance as protection, thinking it will keep us safe. But in truth, it only isolates us. When pride rules the heart, we no longer see others as people, only as measures for comparison, as proof that we are superior. And in that endless competition, love dies. The Buddha once taught, those who burn with arrogance, even if they practice for 1,000 years, will never see the way, because the light of wisdom can only pass through a humble heart. In psychology, this is known as the ego's defense wall. When we are criticized, the brain's amygdala, the center of threat response, activates immediately. We react as if under attack, even when it's just words. And in that instant, love gives way to resistance. But those who meditate learn to see it isn't others who hurt us. It is our ego reacting inside. Once we recognize this, we can stand calmly within the fire, untouched by its flames. In relationships, we often hold swords without realizing it. A loved one says something careless, we feel belittled and strike back. A partner's action wounds us, we retaliate with silence. But after each battle, has anyone really won? We win the argument, but lose our peace. We win the fight, but lose connection. Laying down the sword is not weakness, it is wisdom, because only the unafraid can set their weapons aside. Letting go doesn't mean letting others step on you. It means choosing to keep your heart pure amid the storm. The Buddha compared the mind to a lake. If stirred by arrogance and anger, it can no longer reflect the sky. Only when it is still does truth appear. Modern science confirms this. When a person pauses before reacting, the parasympathetic nervous system activates, lowering stress hormones and restoring clarity. That pause, that stillness, is meditation itself. Tonight, before you sleep, try a simple meditation. Sit quietly, place your hand on your heart, and breathe deeply. As you inhale, whisper, I don't need to be right. As you exhale, I only need to be at peace. Feel the breath flow through your chest, as if washing away the dust of pride that clings to the heart. Imagine yourself setting down the sword not in defeat, but in freedom. Because when humility rises, the world softens. When we stop trying to prove ourselves, the people around us become kinder. Anger dissolves, the heart opens, and in that openness, love blooms again. The samurai did not lose his strength when he laid down his sword. He rediscovered his true power, the power of compassion and understanding. When we learn to lower the sword, we see that every person who crosses our path comes not to fight, but to reflect something within us. Those who anger us teach us patience. Those who hurt us teach us understanding. And those we love most teach us letting go. Because true love is not holding tight. It is trusting that every soul has its own path of flight. Just like the child and the butterfly in the next story, where we learn that love only blossoms when we are brave enough to open our hand. To love is not to hold on, but to let life fly freely. Letting go is not losing. It is trusting that every soul has its own wings. Early summer morning dew still rested on the broad lotus leaves. Soft sunlight filtered through the gaps, shimmering on the lake's surface like thousands of tiny mirrors. From the garden behind the Zen monastery came the sound of laughter, the clear voice of a child crouched down, staring intently at something small on the ground. He cupped his hands tightly, trembling, both nervous and excited. Inside those small palms, a butterfly struggled to break free. Have you ever loved someone so much that you wanted to hold on to them, even when you knew that holding on would hurt you both? We often think love means to hold, to protect, to never lose. But sometimes the moment we try to hold on is the very moment we cause pain. Like the child clutching the butterfly out of love, but unaware that every squeeze harms its fragile wings a little more. In life, some relationships are just as delicate. We cling out of fear of losing, fear of change. We help others by trying to shape them in ways we think are best, forgetting that every soul has its own path of flight. The Buddha taught love is not possession. True love gives the other the freedom to be themselves. So what does it mean to love without holding? How do we let go without feeling? We've lost. Once in the garden of a small temple nestled on a mountainside, there was a young novice monk. He was devoted to his studies, but also loved observing nature, where every drop of dew and every flower seemed to hide a lesson about life. After each morning chant, he would run to the garden where wild grass bloomed and butterflies danced in the gentle light. One fresh morning, he saw a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. It trembled, its wings twitching weakly, but unable to open. Watching it, his heart ached. "Poor thing," he whispered, and gently used his fingers to help tear the cocoon open. The butterfly did come out, but its wings were wrinkled, wet, and weak. It tried to stretch under the sun but couldn't fly. Moments later, it lay still in the monk's hand, fragile, silent, breathless. The young monk burst into tears. The abbot of the monastery walked by and stopped. He asked softly, "Why are you crying?" "I just wanted to help," the boy sobbed. "I saw it suffering, trapped in the cocoon." The Zen master sat beside him, gazing at the bamboo swaying gently in the wind. After a moment, he pointed to the sky, where a few butterflies fluttered in the sunlight. "Do you see those butterflies?" he said. Each one had to struggle through its own cocoon. That struggle allows the blood to flow through their wings. It makes them strong enough to fly. When you tore the cocoon open for it, you took away its chance to grow. The boy fell silent. He looked down at the still butterfly in his palm, so small, like a dream that ended too soon. The master placed a kind hand on his shoulder and said gently, "Sometimes love is not about pulling someone out of suffering, but trusting that they have the strength to walk through it themselves." A breeze passed through the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and the dance of butterflies. In that light, the young monk saw another butterfly just emerging from its cocoon, trembling, fragile, yet stretching its wings toward the sky. He smiled a smile still wet with tears, but filled with understanding. Love, he realized, is not helping someone fly. It is waiting patiently for them to find their wings. That story teaches a simple but profound truth. Love is not pulling it, is letting life unfold and fly freely. We humans often confuse love with possession. We want others to be happy, but on our terms. We want them to be free, but only in ways that don't scare us. We want to help them out of pain, but sometimes the way we help clips their wings instead. The Buddha said every being carries the seed of enlightenment. Never think you must save another. Simply help them see their own path. When you truly love someone, you stop trying to control their process. You trust that, like the butterfly, they too must go through their own struggle to become strong, wise, and awake. Modern psychology calls this respecting healthy boundaries. Love does not mean merging or rescuing, it means walking beside someone mindfully. If you constantly pull someone out of their pain, you weaken them. They never learn how to stand. Like the mother, too, afraid to let her child fall while learning to walk, or the friend who hides the truth to spare another's feelings, that is not love. That is fear. In Zen, compassion and wisdom always go together. Wisdom teaches us when to act and when to stay still. Staying still is not indifference. It is deep trust in the journey of causes and conditions. In life, we will meet many butterflies, people trapped in their own cocoons, a friend heartbroken by love, a family member lost in confusion, or even ourselves. When we see someone suffer, our instinct is to help. But before acting, ask yourself, am I truly helping or am I interfering? Because some pains exist to help us grow. Some losses come to teach us how to fly. If someone leaves your life, don't rush to blame or cling. Be grateful they have completed their role in your awakening. Every soul has its own flight path, sometimes parallel, sometimes crossing, sometimes just touching for a moment before drifting apart. And all of it is exactly as it should be. Emotional science shows that when people let go of the need to control their cortisol, stress hormone levels drop, while oxytocin, the hormone of love and connection, rises. Letting go, therefore, is not weakness. It is healing strength. Tonight, before you sleep, think of someone you once wanted to help or hold. Take a deep breath in, then slowly exhale. Whisper in your heart, may you be strong enough to fly. Feel your heart open like the wings of a butterfly. When you stop trying to change others, your mind becomes still. When you allow them to be themselves, love becomes pure. True love does not create attachment. It creates space. A space where others can grow, and where you too grow in understanding. If you are hurting because someone is no longer beside you, imagine a butterfly flying away in the sunset. It is not gone. It has only gone where it belongs. Just like those who once entered your life, they never truly leave. They simply change form from the outside world into your heart. And each time you smile through the ache of remembrance, they are still there, flying within your breath. Real love is neither holding nor giving away. It is understanding. Understanding that every being is unfolding in their own time. Understanding that every meeting has a purpose and every separation is part of the path to awakening. When we see this clearly, we no longer divide life into right or wrong, high or low. We simply see every being is flying each on their own wind, and that is where the next story will take us, to a place where we learn that true compassion knows no hierarchy. For only when we meet each other without above or below can love in its purest form truly begin. Have you ever wondered why humans divide themselves into the high and the low, when all of us breathe the same air, drink the same rain that falls from the sky? Why are some born into silk and gold, while others must beg for a single bowl of rice? and more importantly does compassion. The purest essence within us recognizes social class at all. In society, we often see others through invisible labels, status, profession, education, or appearance. But the Buddha taught, there is no one higher or lower in love. Only those who have yet to realize that we are all breathing the same breath of life. As long as the mind still sees me and them, it has not yet learned to love. Only when the mind sees us does compassion truly begin. This is a story of two people from opposite ends of the world who met to learn the one lesson every heart must understand. Love knows no class. It was winter, and snow blanketed the eastern kingdom. On his way back to the royal palace, a young prince stopped by a poor riverside village. The cold wind cut through skin like knives. Small, crooked houses leaned beneath the gray mist. Villagers lined the road, bowing deeply as the royal procession passed. But among them, one beggar sat quietly by the roadside. He did not bow. He did not speak. He simply gazed at the tiny flame flickering in a clay bowl before him, eyes distant as if listening to something deeper than the wind. Curious, the prince pulled the reins and turned his horse. "Old man," he called, "why do you not kneel before me like the others?" The beggar lifted his head and smiled a soft, smoke-like smile. "Because," he said, "I see no one beneath another. Why should I kneel?" The prince froze. He was used to absolute obedience, yet there was no defiance in the man's tone, only calmness, a serenity that stirred something deep within him. "Who are you?" the prince asked. "I am merely one searching for food." "You don't know who I am." "I do," the beggar replied. "You are also someone searching for what will fill you." The words struck the prince like a quiet arrow. He laughed, but his laughter wavered. "I already have everything Food Silk Palace's power. What more is there to search for?" The beggar looked at him, then placed a hand gently on his own chest. "And in here, have you ever felt full?" The prince fell silent. The beggar picked up a small stone and tossed it into the river. Ripples spread outward, then faded into stillness. "When we see ourselves as above others," the old man said, "waves rise within the heart. But when we realize we are all drifting in the same current, no higher, no lower, the heart becomes still, like the surface of this river." The prince watched the ripples vanish. Smoke from the villagers' stoves drifted softly through the air. The beggar continued, his voice merging with the wind. "I was once rich like you. But the day I lost everything, I felt light for the first time. Not because poverty freed me, but because I no longer needed to prove anything. Only when there is nothing left to guard can one truly give." The words glowed like a small flame in the young prince's heart. He looked into the beggar's eyes, deep as an autumn lake, reflecting infinite stillness. Then, joining his palms, he bowed low. "From this day forward," he said softly, "I vow to learn what it means to be full within." The beggar smiled and stood. Dawn broke over the mountains, the mist lifted, and his figure dissolved into the morning light, as if he had never existed at all, leaving only a silence that made one bow in reverence. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no high or low in human essence, only minds asleep and minds awake. The rich are not greater than the poor. One learns impermanence through abundance, the other learns acceptance through lack. The Buddha said, "All beings possess Buddha nature." It means that within both the beggar and the prince shines the same light of wisdom, only veiled by different layers of dust. Social rank and hierarchy exist only in the eyes of ego, which still seeks position to affirm itself. But in the eyes of the awakened, no one stands above or below. All are walking the same path, learning, suffering, growing together. Modern psychology confirms this truth when a person sees themselves as better than others. The brain releases a temporary surge of dopamine, a fleeting thrill. But oxytocin, the hormone of empathy and connection, drops. In other words, the higher we place ourselves, the further we drift from love. That is why a beggar can rest peacefully in tattered robes, while a prince feels empty in his golden halls. Because peace does not come from position, it comes from non-separation. In today's world, class wears many faces. It's not just wealth or status, it's the subtle ego within us all. The educated looking down on the unlearned, the successful pitying the failed, even long-time practitioners feeling superior to beginners on the path. But remember, the mind of comparison is the root of suffering. The more we wish to stand above, the further we step from compassion. Watch a child. It doesn't distinguish rich from poor, white from black. It only sees people. That is the purest form of love, seeing others without the lens of I. The Buddha taught, when you meet anyone, remember that being has once been your mother, your father, your friend in countless past lives. Holding that thought, you cannot look down on anyone, for everyone has once been a part of you. Neuroscience now shows that acts of gratitude and empathy activate the brain's ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the region linked to inner peace, reduced stress, and emotional healing. A truth the Buddha revealed millennia ago. When you love without distinction, you are healing yourself. Tonight, before you sleep, imagine sitting beside that beggar by the fire. No crown, no title, no past, just two human beings sharing one breath, one fear, one longing for peace. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Each breath is a step away from the small self. Let your heart soften and whisper quietly, I meet everyone with an equal mind. When you practice this, sleep will come as light as the wind. No more comparisons, envy, or inferiority, only the warmth of connection with every being breathing alongside you on this earth. For in the end, whether prince or beggar, we are all journeying through this human life, learning the same lesson, love without condition. When you truly understand that compassion has no class, you'll see that every relationship in life is a chance to expand the heart. Some people teach us humility, others teach us patience, and still others teach us how to let go. And through that journey, we realize that love does not come from holding on, but from knowing when to release. The next story will take us there, to a place where we learn that true love never possesses. For as parents, we can only show the way, we cannot walk it for our children. And sometimes letting go is the highest form of love. At dawn, when the mist still blanketed the distant hills, the first rays of sunlight filtered softly through the bamboo grove behind the temple. A father walked slowly along the dirt path, his bare feet leaving small prints on the ground. Beside him was his young son, his eyes bright yet still filled with pride. They walked in silence, accompanied only by the sound of birdsong and the wind whispering through the leaves. It was the first morning, after many years apart, the day father and son once again walked the same road. In life, perhaps the hardest thing is not learning how to love, but learning how to love without possession. We can easily love someone, but it is much harder to let them be who they truly are. A father wants his son to follow in his footsteps. A mother wants her child to live according to what she believes is right. Even in romantic love, we want the other person to become the version we imagine. Yet the Buddha taught, true love is not attachment, it is freedom. If love takes away another's freedom, it is no longer love. It is the fear of losing. The greatest question for any parent is not, how can I make my child obey me? But rather, how can my child find their own path even when I'm no longer there? And the story that follows is a living example of that lesson love does not possess. Letting go is the highest form of love. When the Buddha still walked the earth before his enlightenment, he was a prince living in luxury, a gentle wife, a small son, and a whole kingdom under his feet. But inside, he endured long, sleepless nights. One moonlit night, walking outside the palace, he heard the wind rustling through the mango trees and saw the yellow leaves falling. In that moment, he understood everything changes. That night, he made the decision to leave. Before stepping out of the city gates, he paused beside the bed of his little son, Rahula. In the dim light, the child's face glowed soft and peaceful in sleep. The Buddha leaned down, wanting to hold his son one last time, but stopped. He knew that one touch would awaken the bond that could pull him back, and if he turned back, humanity would never have a path out of suffering. So he left silently, carrying only the image of the child he loved most in the world. Years later, when the Buddha had attained enlightenment and returned to Kapilavastu, Rahula had grown up. He heard the villagers whisper that his father, the one who had left the throne behind, was now a revered, awakened being. Curiosity mixed with confusion in his heart. He ran to the city gates, and among the crowd he saw his father no longer a prince, but a serene monk in a saffron robe, his walk calm, his eyes still as water. Father Rahula asked, "You've been gone so many years, have you come back to take me with you?" The Buddha smiled gently. "I do not take anyone anywhere, my son. I only show the way." Rahula froze. He did not understand. Why did the father he longed for not open his arms? But in the Buddha's gaze, there was no distance. "Do you wish to walk with me?" the Buddha asked softly. "Yes, Father, I do." "Then come, but walk with your own feet." From that day, Rahula asked to become a monk, yet he still carried the pride of royal blood. He believed he was special, that he deserved to be treated differently. One day a traveler came asking for directions. Rahula playfully pointed him the wrong way. When word reached the Buddha, he did not scold him. He simply called Rahula to the well and handed him a bowl of clear water. "Look into it," he said. "What do you see, my reflection, Father?" The Buddha took a handful of dust and scattered it into the bowl. "And now I see nothing," Rahula replied. The Buddha said, "Your mind is the same, Rahula. When it is clouded by dust, pride, ambition, desire, you cannot see yourself clearly." Then he told Rahula to pour out the water. "Do you regret losing it?" "No, Father. It was already dirty." The Buddha nodded. "Never cling to what is not pure. What you must preserve is the clarity of your own heart, not my title, nor anyone's shadow." From that day, Rahula changed. He no longer saw himself as the Buddha's son, but as a seeker discovering his own path. In that letting go, he finally understood his father had never left. He was there in every breath, in the silent light of mindfulness within his heart. The story of the Buddha and Rahula is not only about father and son, it is the relationship between love and wisdom. Love without wisdom becomes attachment. Wisdom without love becomes coldness. The Buddha taught Rahula through silence, not by control or correction, but through a presence free of bondage. He showed the way and allowed his son to walk it himself. This is the essence of metta, loving kindness in Buddhism. Metta means giving joy. Karuna, compassion, means helping others end suffering. But both must arise from a heart that does not cling. In modern psychology, this is called mature love, when we love not to fill our emptiness, but to allow the other to be fully themselves. A parent who reaches this kind of love no longer needs their child to follow their path, but simply wishes for the child to awaken their own light. In everyday life, every parent knows the fear. If I let go, my child might lose their way. But if you never let go, your child will never learn to fly. Like a young bird, it must leave the nest to learn how to soar. To love without possessing is the greatest challenge of the heart, because when we truly love, we want to protect. Yet sometimes that very protection blocks another's path of growth. The Buddha taught, no one can walk another's karma. No matter how deeply you love, you cannot suffer, awaken, or transform for another. You can only do one thing: keep your light shining, so they may see their way by its glow. Many great parents are not great because they say much, but because they know when to be silent. Silence is not indifference. It is faith that the seed of awareness will awaken in its own time. Modern science now confirms this truth. When parents allow their children freedom, the brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for independence and decision-making, grows stronger. Children become more responsible, more confident, and less anxious. This echoes what the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago. Letting go is the highest form of love. Tonight before you sleep, if you are a parent or simply someone who has ever loved deeply, try this small practice. Breathe in and silently say, I cannot walk the path for them. Breathe out and continue, but I can love without attachment. Feel your breath move through your chest. Light, steady, real. Each breath, a gentle release. Each release, a return to pure love, free, clear, fearless. Imagine Rahula sitting beside his father, their eyes full of quiet understanding. No resentment, no expectation, only deep gratitude. Between them, no longer father and son, only two souls illuminated by the same light. When you can love someone that way, without needing them to belong to you, without needing them to understand you, you have touched the essence of compassion. And in that silence, sleep will come softly, like moonlight resting upon a still lake. Every relationship in life is a lesson in letting go. Parents let go so children can grow. Lovers let go so both can be free. Friends let go of expectations so the heart remains pure. But letting go does not mean forgetting or not caring. It means loving without demand for return. The next story will take us to another facet of love, where a Zen master and a painter learn the art of recognition. For sometimes we are not bound by others, but by our own need to be understood and praised. Only when we let go of that need, the heart becomes truly free to love. Let go of the need for recognition. Only when you no longer need to be understood can you love in freedom. Have you ever realized that most of the pain in life doesn't come from not being loved, but from wanting to be understood? We help someone then feel disappointed when they're not grateful. We give our best, then feel sad when no one notices. We are kind, then feel hurt when we're misunderstood. All of this shares one root, the desire for recognition. Yet perhaps the deepest kind of love begins when we stop seeking it, like a flower blooming in a hidden forest, unseen yet fragrant. In the world of Zen, this is called the unseeking mind, a state free from the need to be noticed, loved, or understood. It simply lives and gives, because that is the nature of an awakened heart. One late summer afternoon, sunlight streamed through the temple windows. Incense smoke drifted softly like mist. A young disciple came to his master troubled. He was a painter. Every brushstroke he made came from mindfulness, from breath, from heart. But his pain came from one thing no one understood: his art. People said his paintings were abstract, meaningless, too still, too sad. He smiled, but inside he was breaking. One evening he asked, "Master, I've poured my soul into every painting, yet no one sees it. Why does it hurt so much not to be understood?" The Zen master sat quietly gazing out into the moonlit garden. After a long silence, he spoke gently. "Do you paint to be understood, or do you paint because your heart needs stillness?" The question fell like a drop of water onto a still pond, rippling outward silently. Long ago, in a small temple hidden deep in a pine forest, there lived an old Zen master known for his silence. Among his disciples was a young painter named Taku. He had come to the temple with one burning dream: to paint a picture that could express the mind of the Buddha. For years, Taku painted. He painted mountains, moons, rivers, and the serene face of the Buddha beneath the stars. But the more he painted, the more restless he became. Each time he finished a work, he thought, "It's still not enough." He brought his paintings to the marketplace, but no one noticed them. "Your art feels cold," someone said, "like it has no life." Another remarked, "The Buddha in your painting looks too distant." Each word was like a blade carving into his heart. One rainy night, Taku knelt before his master. "Master, I've tried everything, yet no one values my work. I feel worthless. Perhaps I should stop painting altogether." The master sat beside the tea table, quietly pouring another cup. "Do you see the raindrops outside?" he asked. Taku looked out. The rain fell gently on the leaves, unseen, unpraised, yet still cooled the earth, nourished the trees, and flowed toward the stream. "The raindrop doesn't need to be seen to fulfill its purpose," the master said, "nor does the sun demand gratitude. Your painting is an act of the heart, not a bargain for recognition." Taku fell silent, but the unease in his chest did not disappear. Months later, the master took Taku up a mountain path. After hours of climbing, they reached a cave whose walls were covered in moss. The master placed a brush and inkstone in his hands. "Paint." Taku hesitated. "But no one will ever see it here," exactly, the master said. "Because no one will see you can finally paint." Taku sat in stillness, listening to the wind slip through the rocks, to the sound of water dripping in the dark. He no longer thought of the viewer or even of himself. His brush moved with his breath, his heartbeat the silence of the mountain. When the first light of dawn reached the cave, the painting was finished. The sunlight touched the rock wall, and the image seemed to breathe. It was not the Buddha, nor any landscape, just a few simple strokes filled with vast stillness. The master smiled. "Now you may return." Years later, when travelers discovered the painting in that cave, they were awestruck by its beauty. But by then, both the master and Taku were long gone. Only the forest wind remained and the silent painting still teaching the lesson of letting go of recognition. That story reveals a truth the Buddha once taught. Those who live for the eyes of others will never be free. We grow up in a culture of recognition, grades, praise, affection, understanding. But the deeper we walk on the spiritual path, the clearer we see that every craving to be seen is just a subtle form of attachment to self. In meditation, letting go of the need for recognition is a profound act of liberation. Because the moment we need others to understand us, we've already denied our own worth. We hand them the power to decide if we matter, and from that moment, suffering begins. The young painter is all of us still painting the canvas of life, hoping for approval, for validation, for someone to say, "I see you." But as the master said, a flower does not need to be admired to release its fragrance. The Buddha taught that love and understanding can only bloom when the mind is free from comparison. When we love someone but still need them to understand us, our love is still conditional. When we give and expect to be acknowledged, our compassion is still incomplete. True compassion is loving, without needing to be understood, giving, without expecting anything in return. Modern psychology calls this the need for validation. It's a natural human drive. But when it becomes dependency, we lose our sense of self. Those who can love without needing feedback are often the ones who have gone through deep inner maturity. This mirrors the Zen idea of the unseeking mind. Letting go of expectation doesn't mean being indifferent or cold. It means doing your best without letting the result control your peace. When someone misunderstands, you don't rush to explain. When someone turns away, don't rush to blame. Look deeper. Those who don't understand you are only reflecting the part of you still longing for acknowledgement. If you're a parent, don't expect your child to fully grasp your love. Just plant the seeds of goodness and let time unfold the blossoms. If you're in love, let love breathe. Don't bind it with the need for the other to feel your devotion. Neuroscientists have found that when we constantly crave recognition, the brain releases stress hormones like cortisol, causing anxiety and sleeplessness. But when we practice mindfulness and the unseeking mind, the brain releases serotonin and oxytocin chemicals that calm the body and bring peace. Thus, letting go of expectation is not only a spiritual practice, it is an act of healing for body and mind. Tonight, before you sleep, try a small practice. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and exhale gently. Think of someone whose understanding you once longed for: a parent, a partner, a friend, and silently say in your heart, "Thank you for coming into my life. I no longer need to be understood. I only wish to keep my heart clear and love with freedom." Feel that lightness real and tender. You may notice your breath deepen, your body relax, and sleep come like an old friend returning home. Letting go of the need for recognition does not make us weaker. It makes us truly strong, because only when we no longer need to be understood can we love without fear of being hurt. In every relationship, the true source of pain is not the other person, but the image of ourselves reflected through them. Like a mirror, every person we meet reflects the part of us that is not yet clear. And when we are misunderstood, judged, or hurt, it is the perfect chance to wipe the mirror clean. The next story will take you one step deeper to see that others are not the cause of our suffering, but mirrors helping us recognize the dust within. Let us continue walking that path, the path of gently wiping away ignorance until the light of the awakened heart shines through. Have you ever noticed that the people who hurt us the most are often the very ones who once moved us the deepest? A single word, an action, or even silence can leave us sleepless for nights. And we keep thinking, if only they understood me. But sometimes what we need to understand is not them, it's ourselves. In the Buddha's teaching, every relationship is a mirror. Others do not cause our suffering. They merely reflect the parts of our mind that are not yet clear. If we grow angry, the mirror shows us that anger is still within. If we feel disrespected, the mirror reveals our attachment to ego. Everyone who passes through our life even once comes to help us wipe away another layer of dust from the mirror of the heart. One afternoon, as the wind carried the scent of young grass from the hillside, a young novice monk came to his master, his face shadowed with sadness. "Master," he said, "I don't understand how someone I love could hurt me so deeply. I only wished them well, yet my words pushed them away. What should I do so they can understand? I meant no harm." The master looked at his student with eyes calm and kind like a still lake. "Have you ever looked into a mirror," he asked, "and blamed it for showing your face as crooked?" The novice blinked in surprise. "No, master, never." "Then why blame another?" the master continued, "for reflecting what you have not yet seen within yourself. Long ago, in a dense bamboo forest, there was a small temple so quiet one could hear the wind passing through every leaf. There lived an old Zen master, known for his teaching, called the Dusty Mirror. People traveled from afar to learn from him, hoping to find peace, but most left confused, unable to grasp the true meaning behind his lesson. Among the disciples who stayed was a young monk named Shin, bright, diligent, but quick to anger and easily hurt. Even gentle feedback made him feel insulted. One morning, while Shin was sweeping the temple yard, an older monk passed by and said softly, "You missed a spot there." It was a simple remark, but Shin immediately frowned and snapped, "I know, brother. You don't have to remind me." When the master heard about it, he didn't scold. He simply said, "Come to see me this evening after the sun sets." That night, under a pale moon and the sound of crickets, the master placed a large, dusty mirror before Shin. "Wipe this mirror," he said quietly, "until you can clearly see your face." Shin began wiping. After a while, he sighed. "There's too much dust, master. No matter how hard I clean it, stays cloudy." "Keep wiping," the master said. Shin tried harder, scrubbing with force, but the harder he rubbed, the more the mirror scratched. Seeing this, the master said gently, "The dust may go, but the scratches remain. When you try to prove you're right, you only wound your own heart." Shin froze. Then he slowed down, wiping gently, patiently. Little by little, the haze faded. The mirror began to reflect the moonlight. The master asked, "What do you see now I see?" "Myself." "Do you?" The master smiled. "Are you truly seeing yourself, or just the image of you?" Shin stood speechless. The master continued softly. A mirror only reflects. It does not choose what to show nor reject what appears. People are the same, they simply reflect what is already in your mind. When anger arises, it is dust within you. When love appears, it is your own light. Do not blame others. They only reveal what you are not yet ready to face. From that day on, whenever someone irritated him, Shin imagined himself standing before that dusty mirror. He no longer reacted immediately. He only whispered inwardly, "What dust has just risen in me years past?" The once fiery young monk had changed. His face became serene, his eyes clear like a mirror wiped clean, and when asked for the secret of his practice, Shin would smile and say, "I did nothing special. I just learned to clean my mirror every day inside my heart." The mirror in this story is a symbol of the mind. Dust represents delusion, the emotions and attachments we have not yet understood or released. Others are merely triggers, not the cause of suffering. The Buddha said, "No one can make you suffer unless the seed of suffering is already within you." That sentence is the key to understanding every relationship. When we are angry with someone, we are really angry at the part of ourselves that feels unheard or unseen. When we see arrogance in another, it may mirror the part of us that still longs to be superior. When we feel abandoned, it often means we have not yet believed in our own wholeness. In Zen, this is called karmic reflection. Each person we meet is a karmic mirror, showing us the aspect of our mind that needs to grow. Someone who hurts us teaches forgiveness. Someone who angers us teaches compassion. Someone who disappoints us teaches impermanence. And someone who makes us happy teaches gratitude. Modern psychology calls this mirror projection the tendency to see in others what we have not yet accepted in ourselves. When we judge someone, we are really confronting our own shadow. Once we understand this, we stop blaming others and begin healing ourselves. If someone makes you uncomfortable, pause. Don't ask, "Why are they like that?" Ask, "Why am I reacting this way?" The answer is not in them. It's in the part of your mind they just touched. Each time you feel hurt, see it as an opportunity to wipe away another layer of dust. When someone criticizes you, thank them for showing you that attachment still exists within. When someone makes you sad, smile, for they have taught you how to embrace sorrow without drowning in it. Like a mirror, once the dust is gone, it doesn't try to shine light, appears on its own. Our mind is the same. When delusion settles, clarity, peace, and compassion reveal themselves naturally. Scientific studies show that when we stop reacting emotionally and instead observe our thoughts' activity in the brain's stress center, the amygdala decreases while the prefrontal cortex, the center of awareness, becomes stronger. Science calls this reappraisal. Zen calls it mindfulness. Both point to the same truth, seeing things as they are, no more, no less. Tonight, before you sleep, try this simple meditation. Close your eyes and imagine a great mirror before you. On its surface appear the faces of those who have hurt you. Don't turn away. Look closely and say in your heart, "Thank you for showing me the part of myself that is not yet clear." As you say this, you are cleaning the mirror. The layers of dust begin to fade. Your breath deepens. Your heartbeat slows. You no longer want to fight or win. You no longer wish for others to change. You simply wish to rest and smile. Letting go does not mean ignoring others. It means no longer feeding the darkness within. That is the greatest freedom a person can find. When the mirror of the heart is clear, you realize that love does not need to be returned to have meaning. Others are merely mirrors helping you see yourself. But once the mirror shines, you no longer need it to reflect anything at all. And when the heart reaches that state, to give without needing to receive, to love without needing to be understood, to help without claiming merit, compassion flows freely, like water down a valley, cooling the earth, nourishing the trees, and merging quietly into the vast sea. The next story will tell you about such a heart that gives without expecting in return, like a stream that waters everything it touches and disappears into the ocean. That is the purest image of love in the Buddha's path to give without needing to be thanked, to act without needing to be seen. For when there is no one left to compare or measure, that love itself becomes wisdom. Have you ever wondered why at times you give so much yet all you receive in return is sadness? You help someone offer them your whole heart, but they walk away without even a word of thanks. You love sincerely, yet what comes back is silence or worse, indifference. And you feel hurt not because you've lost something, but because your love was unseen. In truth, that pain doesn't come from giving, but from expecting something in return. Like a flower that blooms for sunlight, not for admiration, love is only truly free when it's no longer bound by outcome. The Buddha taught, when the hand opens, blessings flow in. When the hand clenches, suffering begins. Giving is a virtue, but giving while expecting acknowledgement is a subtle form of possession. The next story is about a humble woman who carried 2 water buckets each day, not for praise, but for the quiet joy she felt, seeing flowers bloom along her path. At the foot of a misty mountain lay a small village connected by a winding dirt path leading to an old well. There lived a kind woman, accustomed to the silence of the forest and the sound of wind rustling through bamboo. Every dawn before sunrise, she would leave her home carrying 2 large wooden buckets on her slender shoulders. One bucket was whole and polished, the other had a small crack on its side. Each time she returned from the stream, the cracked bucket held only half the water of the other. Day after day, she made the long journey to carry water to a temple on the hilltop. She never complained, though the road was rough, her shoulders heavy, and water always dripped along the way. One morning, as the first sunlight touched the stream, the perfect bucket spoke with pride. I am the one who truly serves her. Every drop I carry reaches the temple. You cracked and leaking only make her work harder. The cracked bucket lowered its head. I know, I wish I weren't broken. Every day I feel useless spilling away what she worked so hard to gather. The woman overheard their words and smiled gently. The next morning, as she carried the buckets again, she said softly, "Today I want you to notice the path we walk." Curious, the cracked bucket watched closely. Halfway up the trail, it noticed something on one side. The earth was dry and bare. On the other, where its water had dripped, a line of wildflowers had blossomed purple, yellow, white, swaying gracefully in the morning light. They stretched the whole way up the path like a soft carpet beneath her feet. Do you see the woman smiled, her eyes tender? The water you thought was wasted has brought these flowers to life. Each morning, I pick them to offer on the Buddha's altar. Without you, this path would be dust and stones. Because of you, the road is full of color and fragrance. The cracked bucket fell silent. It looked at its old fractures, and suddenly, every drop that escaped felt beautiful. It realized the very flaw it had long been ashamed of was actually a gift. From that day forward, it no longer felt inferior. Each trip to the stream became music. The dripping water sounded like a song of joy. The morning light shimmered on the surface of the stream, and the flowers bowed gently to the breeze, as if smiling back at the little cracked bucket. It understood then, no one is truly useless. Sometimes it is precisely through our cracks that light and love find their way through. And ever since, whenever the water dripped, it no longer heard loss, but the whisper of flowers saying thank you. This simple story holds one of the deepest Buddhist truths: true giving needs no return. The woman with the water buckets embodies unconditional compassion. She did not resent the cracked bucket. Instead, she saw beauty in its imperfection. That is the wisdom of non-self, to see causes instead of faults, to see opportunity instead of flaw. In Buddhism, there is the concept of dana paramita, the perfection of giving. It means to give without attachment to giver, gift, or receiver. When we give without expectation, we are the first to be freed. But when we give and wait for recognition, we turn the act into a transaction. People often think that giving means losing, but in truth, to give is to expand oneself. Like light, the more it is shared, the brighter it becomes. Like breathing, if we only inhale and never exhale, we suffocate. Likewise, if love is not given away, it stagnates in the heart. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that people who give freely without calculation experience greater happiness. When we help someone, our brain releases oxytocin, the hormone of connection and joy. But when we give expecting gratitude, that oxytocin drops dramatically. This means that generosity born from pure kindness heals more deeply than any reward could. The woman in the story embodies this spirit. She gives out of love, not for acknowledgement. She acts because her heart moves her, not for praise. In life, we are all sometimes the cracked bucket. We carry our flaws, our wounds, and often feel unworthy. Yet those very cracks make our hearts softer, more compassionate, more understanding. Only those who have been broken truly know the value of being whole. Only those who have suffered can truly cherish joy. If you've ever felt not good enough, remember this. The Buddha did not choose perfect people for enlightenment. He chose those who could look deeply into their imperfections and transform them. Every crack in your life is a place where light can enter. And if you are giving without being acknowledged, don't be sad. A flower never demands a butterfly's visit. It blooms simply because it must. When love flows naturally like breath, that is freedom. Science calls it compassion, satisfaction, the quiet joy that arises when helping others without expecting anything back. Those who practice unconditional compassion have steadier heart rhythms, stronger immunity, and greater resilience in times of crisis. In Buddhist terms, they live in the energy of loving kindness, a happiness that arises not from outside, but from deep inner peace. Before you go to sleep tonight, try a small reflection. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Think of something kind you once did for someone that went unnoticed, a favor, a gesture, maybe just a forgotten smile. Now imagine that person before you, and quietly say in your heart, I don't need your gratitude. I only wish for your happiness. Your breath will soften. A thin veil of dust will fall away from your heart, and in that moment, you will see that when love no longer needs to be returned, it becomes clear and boundless, like water, flowing endlessly downhill. Before sleep, imagine yourself carrying 2 buckets of water, one whole one cracked. With every step, water drips onto the path and flowers begin to bloom. That is the journey of one who gives without expectation. Yet sometimes, even in giving, we fall into another subtle attachment, wanting others to think and believe as we do. Good intentions turn into argument. Kindness turns into conflict. We forget that others too are merely mirrors reflecting our own minds. The next story will open a deeper understanding that every conflict exists not to win, but to awaken. Only when we let go of the need to be right does the door to understanding open, and compassion begins to truly shine. When the mind is still and the heart is clear, you will see no one is truly against you. They only help you see what still needs to be transformed. And like the woman with her buckets, each step you take, even when water spills, can make flowers bloom if you walk with your heart. Have you ever noticed that in most conflicts, it's not the other person's words that hurt us, but our need to be right? A single argument, a judgment, a glance of disapproval, that's enough to ignite fire within. We believe that if we stay silent, we lose. If we don't defend ourselves, we are weak. And so pride puts on the mask of righteousness and marches into battle, the battle called protecting the self. Yet the Buddha taught in the war between right and wrong, the first to lose is the one who has lost peace. When we only see the faults of others, we lose sight of the shadows within ourselves. Every conflict, when seen deeply, is a mirror showing us how much anger, ego, and misunderstanding still remain inside. One early morning at the monastery, clouds drifted over the mountaintop. Dew fell on the ancient pine branches. In the gravel courtyard, hurried footsteps approached. A young novice came rushing in his face, tense with anger. "Master," he said, his voice trembling, "my roommate insulted me. He took my share of rice and laughed at me before everyone. Please judge this matter." The Zen master looked at him, his eyes calm like still water. He asked softly, "Do you want me to judge, or do you want to understand?" The novice froze, unsure how to answer. That single question was like a stone dropped into a pond, sending ripples deep into his heart. Long ago, on a mist-covered mountain, stood a small monastery, hidden among ancient pines. There lived an old Zen master with more than 10 disciples. They practiced in silence, chopping wood, fetching water, meditating, chanting, yet even in silence, small storms still arose in human hearts. Among the disciples, 2 young monks often clashed. One was named Rio, outspoken, and quick to act, his honesty sometimes sharp as a blade. The other, Ken, was quiet, reserved, but tended to hold grudges. Rio's bluntness often hurt others. Ken's silence turned pain into resentment. One morning, as they divided stacks of firewood, Rio said, "I spent all morning splitting these logs. Please bring them to the storage room." Ken frowned. "You always give orders." "I'm not ordering. I'm just organizing," Rio replied. "You just want to show you're better than the rest." A few words, and anger flared. What began with a pile of wood became a fire in their hearts. Each felt wronged, Each wanted the other to see, I'm not the one at fault. The next day, the master summoned them both. He spoke gently. This afternoon, come with me to the forest. The path was slick from the rain, mist hung low between the trees. The master walked slowly, leaning on his staff, at the tip of which hung a small mirror. When they reached a stream, he dipped the mirror into the clear water and asked, "What do you see in this mirror?" "Our own faces." "Master, and when the water turns muddy, then we see nothing." The master smiled. "So it is with your mind. When clouded by anger, you see only others' faults and forget your own reflection." He handed them the mirror. "Keep this. Whenever anger arises, look into it." A few days later, Ken the Quiet One was swept up again in irritation. He remembered his teacher's words, took out the mirror, and looked. What he saw startled him, his face twisted tense, full of fury. He stared for a long time, then burst into laughter, realizing the person he hated most was himself in that moment of lost mindfulness. Another time, Rio accidentally broke a friend's bowl. When scolded, he was about to argue, but then heard his teacher's voice echo within. "When you need to prove you're right, you have already left the present moment." He took a deep breath and bowed. "I'm sorry." For the first time, they looked at each other without the need to win or lose. Something within them softened like the surface of water after the wind has passed. Years later, when the Zen master passed away, a small dusty mirror was found hanging on his wall. Beneath it, faintly etched, were these words: "He who understands his own anger has walked halfway to enlightenment." Since then, whenever tempers rose in the monastery, the monks would say to one another, "Look into the mirror, not to see their faces, but to see their hearts." For every spark of anger, if observed deeply, could become a bridge leading them back to peace. This story is not merely about anger, it is an allegory about ego and wisdom. Anger always begins with the thought, "I am right." And when the mind believes I am right, it instantly creates, "You are wrong." Where duality exists, peace disappears. The Buddha said, "No fire burns like hatred, and no stream cools like compassion." When we are angry, our blood heats, our breath quickens, our heart races. But the greater danger is this anger burns the one who holds it first. Modern psychology confirms this. When we are angry, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, takes control, while the rational prefrontal cortex shuts down. In anger, we don't live, we merely react. That's why Zen teaches, don't trust the first emotion. Because the first emotion is like a passing cloud. If you let it drift, the sky of the mind clears again. Every conflict, in essence, is not to determine who's right or wrong, but to illuminate the self. The person who makes us angry is showing us the part of our mind that's still in darkness. If we pause and watch our anger, we'll see it arise, stay, and dissolve. Then we'll realize the other person never truly caused our suffering. We did, by refusing to look within. In Zen, this is called the practice of reflection, seeing oneself through others, like the mirror given by the master. Each time anger appears, we can ask, why did this touch me so deeply? Only when we stop reacting can wisdom begin to arise. Conflict in life is inevitable, but each one can become a lesson if we meet it with stillness. When someone insults you, instead of reacting, breathe deeply and ask, what inside me feels hurt right now? Maybe it's pride, fear of being dismissed, or the need to stay in control. When you see it clearly, anger loses its grip. A scientist once said, "You cannot control others, but you can control your response, and that is true freedom." The Buddha taught the same, to keep the mind unmoved between praise and blame, that is the middle way. When you stop trying to prove yourself right, a lightness fills your heart, because in truth, no rightness lasts forever. Everything changes with time, place, and perspective. The one you're angry with today may awaken you tomorrow, and if you look with compassion, you'll see that an angry person is not bad. They are simply suffering. If you respond with anger, you double the pain. But if you respond with silence and understanding, you dissolve part of the suffering for both. Tonight, before you sleep, try a short meditation. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths. Think of someone who once made you angry. Instead of replaying the story, simply feel your chest, your belly, your heart. If you sense tightness, heat, or heaviness, breathe in and acknowledge it. Breathe out and let it soften. No need to forgive right away. Just see. See to understand, not to judge. Then you'll realize that person came to teach you something about yourself. When you can smile at a memory that once made you furious, you have already walked through the storm. Those who learn to observe their hearts no longer fear conflict, because conflict, when understood, is a doorway back to stillness. Just as waves cannot drown the ocean, anger cannot destroy the one who knows how to watch it. Once you release the need to be right, your heart grows wider, lighter. You begin to appreciate the cracks within yourself and others because you no longer demand perfection. In an old temple, there once hung a cracked bell. When the wind blew, its sound wasn't perfect yet. It resonated with a depth that touched every heart. And so the next story reminds us, true beauty is not found in perfection, but in the music that rings through imperfection. For when we can accept each other's cracks, love is no longer just emotion, it becomes wisdom. Have you ever wondered why some of the people who once disappointed you are the very ones who helped you understand compassion? And why the imperfect parts within us, the cracks, the wounds, often make others feel closer to us? In life, we often fear not being good enough, not being whole. We try to hide our inner fractures as if they are something shameful. But we forget it is through those very cracks that light is able to enter. The Buddha taught nothing in this world is truly perfect, for all things exist within the cycle of birth, decay, and transformation. Absolute perfection does not exist, but acceptance and understanding are what make us complete. One afternoon, the sound of a temple bell echoed through the valley. The tone was rough, uneven, slightly cracked. A young novice looked up and asked the master, "Why does our bell sound dull, not clear and full, like the bells in other temples?" The master smiled, glancing toward the old bronze bell darkened by time. "Listen again," he said gently, "and tell me what you hear, besides the sound of the bell." Long ago, on a fog-covered mountainside, stood an ancient temple nestled among pine trees. Inside hung a bronze bell that had weathered more than a century. It had witnessed storms, wars, and peaceful springs alike. Over time, moss covered its surface, and one day, a small crack appeared along its rim. From then on, each time the bell rang, its sound was no longer round and perfect. It trembled slightly, as though a hidden sadness wept within the music. Villagers who heard it would shake their heads. The bell is old now. It has lost its spirit. But the abbot only smiled and replied, "This bell may be cracked, but within its sound lies the history of this temple, the breath of all who have come and gone. I do not need a perfect bell. I need one that is true." One winter morning, a young monk from another temple arrived to study there. When he first heard the bell, he frowned. "Master, the bell sounds broken. I think you should replace it. A new bell would make the meditation hall more dignified." The Zen master looked at him and asked softly, "Have you ever felt your heart crack open?" The young monk paused, confused. "Master, I don't understand." The master smiled. "When you are wounded, do you wish to be replaced?" The question silenced him. The master led him outside where the old bell stood still in the mist. He struck it lightly. The sound rose, not flawless, but deep, slow, and resonant, carried away gently by the wind. In its trembling tone was something human, the sound of a heart that had endured sorrow. "Do you hear it?" the master asked. "Yes. I hear metal vibrating, and also breathing." The master nodded. "Exactly. The cracked bell sounds like human breath, uneven but real. It does not hide its wounds, yet it still dares to sing." Then he told him, "Years ago, a great fire swept through this temple. The bell was engulfed in flames, its surface turned red, and it split apart. People urged me to melt it down and cast a new one, but I kept it, because I realized some things become deeper only after they have been broken. The crack gave this bell its soul. Each time it rings, I remember suffering when understood can transform into compassion." From that day on, the young monk no longer frowned at the sound. Each morning, as the rough tone echoed through the fog, he sat quietly and listened. The bell no longer sounded like metal, but like a heartbeat, fragile, yet resilient. He understood that through fracture, we learn to listen to ourselves. The imperfect sound touched something deep within, and each time it rang, not only the temple, but the hearts of all who heard it vibrated a reminder that cracks do not destroy value. They let the light shine deeper. The story of the cracked bell teaches this true beauty is not found in perfection, but in our ability to embrace imperfection. In Buddhist teaching, all things are impermanent. Everything, body, emotions, relationships, even consciousness is constantly changing. When we demand wholeness, we suffer because we resist the natural flow of existence. The bell's crack symbolizes pain and life experience. Without pain, we would not understand empathy. Without loss, we would not know gratitude. Like the bell, it is the crack that gives depth to its sound, allowing it to echo longer and touch hearts more deeply. In psychology, this is known as beautiful imperfection. Humans do not connect through perfection, but through authenticity. A person who always appears strong keeps others at a distance. But when they dare to reveal vulnerability, people feel closer because they see themselves reflected there. The Zen master kept the cracked bell because he knew that whatever has suffered carries a soul. Every scratch, every fracture is proof of time, resilience, and surrender. So too with the human heart. Only after loss do we love more gently, without demand, without possession. The Buddha once said, "The gem becomes brighter through polishing. The human heart becomes deeper through suffering." Suffering does not ruin us, it softens us. Soft enough to understand, to love, to stop comparing right and wrong. Everyone carries their own cracks in the heart, in memory, in relationships once lost. Some try to hide them behind smiles, achievements, or busyness. But the more we hide, the wider they grow, because they only long to be acknowledged. If you have ever been betrayed, hurt, or abandoned, remember you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You only have to be real. Like the bell, it is precisely because it is imperfect that its sound travels farther and touches deeper, for within its sound lies a soul. Psychological research shows that people tend to trust and empathize more with those who can show their vulnerability. When we admit, "I have also been hurt," we no longer stand above others, we stand with them. That is compassion in action. In relationships, when we stop demanding perfection from others, we begin to experience true love, love born not from expectation, but from understanding. The other person doesn't need to be always right, always good, or always strong. They only need to be honest. And we only need to be peaceful enough to listen. Then we realize love is not about finding someone who fits us perfectly, but walking together with our shared cracks, learning how to resonate through the pain. Tonight, before you sleep, listen closely to the sounds around you. The fan, the wind, your own breath. Imagine they are the sound of the cracked bell. Not round, not perfect, but steady, alive. When your heart feels restless, remember that emotion itself is the bell within you ringing. Don't try to silence it, just listen. As you listen, the sound softens. As it softens, clarity arises. If someone has made you sad, remember they too carry their own cracks. And through those cracks, light is entering their heart, just as it does yours. Instead of reacting, take a deep breath and say silently, "I have been there too." That single thought is enough to dissolve anger and awaken compassion. Before closing your eyes, place a hand on your chest and whisper to yourself, "I don't need to be perfect to be loved. I only need to be honest to be at peace." You will feel your breath soften, your sleep grow lighter, for you no longer carry the burden of comparison. And once you truly understand that beauty lies within imperfection, you will learn something even deeper. The heart can only receive when it is empty. Just like the bell, if it were solid, it could not ring. If it were full, it could not resonate. In relationships, what hurts us most is not that others don't understand us, but that our hearts are too full, full of judgment, full of expectation, full of the need to be seen. The next story will tell of a learned scholar who came to see a Zen master. When tea overflowed from the cup, he suddenly realized when the mind is already full, nothing new can enter. And in every relationship, if we only pour out our own opinions and never make space to receive, we will never know what true empathy means. For understanding, like love, begins only when we create empty space within the heart. Have you ever felt that you've listened a lot, yet still failed to truly understand the person in front of you? Or that in a conversation all you wanted was to be understood, forgetting that in doing so, you might have closed the door to truly receiving? We often believe that the more we know, the more we understand, the easier it is to learn. But sometimes that very knowing becomes the invisible wall that prevents us from learning anything new. A mind that is already full, like a cup that's already overflowing, cannot receive another drop no matter how much you pour. In life, this doesn't only happen in study. It happens in love, in work, and in every relationship. When we approach someone with a fixed idea, "I'm right, I already understand, I know who they are," we're no longer truly present. That morning, mist still hung over the monastery garden. The air was so still, it felt as if the world had paused to breathe. Inside a small wooden room, the faint sound of boiling tea drifted through the silence. A famous scholar had come to visit a Zen master to discuss the way. He carried a stack of books pages filled with notes and questions, and the pride of a man who already knew too much. Across from him sat the old master, calm and serene, his eyes as clear and deep as still water. The scholar bowed and spoke hurriedly, afraid to waste a moment. "Master, I've studied many sutras and explored various schools of Zen, but I still feel something is missing. Please teach me the ultimate truth." The master smiled gently and said nothing. He simply began to pour tea. The morning light streamed in through the window, glinting off the bronze teapot. Steam rose slowly, curling through the jasmine-scented air. The scholar sat upright, eager and expectant. He believed the master would soon explain enlightenment, the great wisdom he had read about in countless books. But the master said nothing. He kept pouring. The tea filled the cup, then reached the brim, then began to overflow, spilling onto the table, dripping onto the scholar's robes. Startled, the scholar exclaimed, "Master, the cup is full. It's overflowing." The Zen master calmly set down the teapot. His voice was soft, almost like a breeze. "Just like this cup, your mind is already full. How can I pour anything into it?" The room fell completely silent. Only the sound of dripping tea remained, each drop forming a small ring that slowly dissolved into stillness. The master looked at him and said slowly, "You came here not to learn, but to confirm what you already believe. You only wish to hear what agrees with your own thoughts. Then tell me who is the one learning." Those words struck the scholar like a bell ringing through emptiness. He lowered his head, staring at the cup still steaming before him. In that quiet moment, he realized all these years he had searched for Zen through intellect, not through an open heart. The master gently poured another cup and said, "To understand Zen, the mind must be empty. When it is empty, it can reflect like still water. And to truly listen to others, you must first be silent inside." The scholar bowed deeply and fell silent. He no longer spoke of philosophy or debate. He asked to stay at the temple, not to study scriptures, but to learn how to be empty. Days passed. He swept the courtyard, chopped wood, boiled water for tea. No books, no questions. Each morning he listened to the bell echo across the valley. Each night he sat beneath the veranda, watching clouds drift past the mountain peaks. The longer he stayed, the calmer his heart became, like a lake after the rain, reflecting the moon with perfect clarity. One autumn morning, as he brewed tea, a yellow leaf floated down and landed on the still pond before him. He watched it spin gently, then rest. And in that moment, he understood. Truth doesn't lie in what is poured in, but in the still space between two breaths. Wisdom doesn't come from accumulation, but from release. And when the cup of the mind, once overflowing, becomes empty again, even a single drop of tea is enough to fill it with peace. The story of the overflowing teacup is one of the most well-known Zen parables because it reveals the root of spiritual learning. When the mind is full, nothing new can enter. But full here doesn't just mean arrogance or knowledge. It also means full of judgment, full of the past, full of fear, full of expectation. When you look at someone while already holding an image of who they are, you no longer see them. When you listen only to respond, you haven't truly listened. In Zen, emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It means freedom. Freedom from preconceptions. An empty mind has space for the present moment to enter, just like the sky clouds come and go, but the sky itself never disappears. This teaching echoes the Buddha's words in the Diamond Sutra. Let your mind arise without clinging to anything. When we stop clinging, the mind becomes free. When we stop holding, we see things as they are unfiltered, uncolored. Modern psychology also supports this truth. Studies on communication show that 85% of conflicts arise not from real differences, but from assumptions from minds already full. We don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. We don't look to see. We look to confirm what we believe. Zen teaches us to listen with an empty mind. When the mind is empty, there is no resistance, no blame, no need for validation. Only then can we be truly present with another human being. In relationships, the overflowing cup symbolizes the ego and its fixed opinions. When we only want to pour in to talk, to explain, to convince, there's no space left to pour out for others. When both are full, love cannot flow. Understanding cannot pass through. We often suffer because we want others to understand us, forgetting that they are also longing to be understood. But true understanding doesn't come from words. It grows in the quiet space between two hearts, where no one is trying to prove anything. Think about your recent conversations. How many times have you interrupted someone because you thought you already knew what they'd say? How many times have you repeated your view hoping they would get it? Sometimes you don't need to convince, you just need to pause. When you listen with an empty mind, others naturally open. Just like the teacup, only when you pour out the old tea can new fragrance fill it. Neuroscientists call this state open attention. When we let go of attachment, the brain quiets the judgment centers and activates empathy instead. That's why when you truly listen with openness, you can feel another person, even without words. Letting go of what you know doesn't mean losing your mind. It means freeing it. The less you carry, the more you perceive. The less you define, the more you can love. Before sleep tonight, you can try a small meditation. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes. Imagine your mind as a cup filled to the brim. With each exhale, imagine pouring out a little, releasing leftover thoughts, worries, emotions. Pour out the words left unsaid, the need to prove, the weight of comparison. Breathe in, feel the lightness. Breathe out, let go. When the mind feels empty with nothing to prove, nothing to hold, sleep comes easily and peacefully. Because when the mind is no longer full, it returns to its natural state, calm, like a still lake. And as the mind becomes empty, you begin to see another truth. It isn't just knowledge that fills the mind, it's also judgment. memory, and the past. Often we still carry old people inside us, not their bodies, but the emotions they left behind. A word, a glance, a memory, and the wall rises again in our heart, just like the next story about two monks crossing a river. One let the woman go as soon as they reached the other side. The other carried her all the way in his mind. That story reminds us, we don't tire from the weight we carry in our hands, but from the burdens we refuse to set down in our hearts, because the past truly passes only when we stop carrying it within us. Let go of judgment in the past. Sometimes we carry the woman by the river for far too long, not because of others, but because of our own attachment. Have you ever noticed that what truly exhausts us isn't what happened, but what we still hold inside? A word, a glance, a memory we thought had faded, yet when something reminds us, those emotions rise again, as if it were only yesterday. We often believe we've let go, when in truth, we've only pushed the pain into the deepest corner of the mind, where even the smallest trigger brings the old wounds rushing back. We may no longer see, that person may no longer live in that place, yet the girl by the river still walks with us in every step we take. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is when the memory returns and the heart no longer trembles. The Buddha taught, if the mind does not cling, one can walk through mud and remain unstained. That morning dew still clung to the leaves. The path from the monastery to the river shimmered under soft light. Two young monks were walking together for alms. Their saffron robes swayed gently in the breeze. The river murmured softly. Birds called to one another among the bamboo. Everything was peaceful until they saw a young woman standing by the bank. The mist still hovered over the mountain peaks, and the river ran high and fierce from the night's rain. The girl dressed in white hesitated. Her eyes were filled with worry. The muddy current surged over the stones, dark, deep, and dangerous. Seeing the monks approach, she pressed her palms together. Please, venerable sirs, help me cross the river. I'm afraid I'll fall. The younger monk stopped uneasy. He stepped back and frowned slightly. We are monks. We cannot touch women. A gust of wind blew scattering droplets from the trees. The older monk stood quietly for a moment, his face calm and kind. Then he smiled gently, stepped forward and said softly, "Come, child. I'll carry you across." The girl hesitated, then climbed onto his back. The water swirled violently around his legs. The soft mud pulled at each step, but his pace was steady, deliberate, unwavering. His robe fluttered in the wind splashes of river water glinting under sunlight. The girl held tightly to his shoulders, her heart racing yet strangely at peace. When they reached the opposite bank, he knelt for her to step down. She bowed deeply in gratitude and quickly disappeared down the path beyond the bamboo grove. The two monks continued walking. The mountain trail wound upward. Cicadas sang among the pines. The young monk stayed silent, but his brows remained furrowed. Near the monastery, he finally burst out. Brother monks should avoid contact with women. Why did you break the rule and carry her across? The elder monk stopped, turned to him, and smiled the same gentle smile. "I put her down by the river long ago," he said. "Why are you still carrying her?" The young monk froze. It felt as if a bell had been struck within his heart. The wind stirred the bamboo leaves, rippling the water at their feet. The river kept flowing indifferent to human stories. But inside the young monk, something dissolved like silt settling to reveal clear water beneath. As they walked on, each step felt lighter. He had learned what it truly means to put something down. Not just a person, but the heaviness in his own heart. The story of the two monks and the girl by the river is one of the deepest Zen parables about attachment. The younger monk was not wrong for keeping his vows, but he was trapped in form. He carried the girl longer in his mind than the elder monk did in his arms. In Buddhist teaching, what binds us is not the action itself, but the thought behind it. Whatever the mind clings to, it continues to carry long after the body has moved on. The elder monk understood that compassion does not distinguish between male or female, pure or impure, right or wrong. He helped because he saw suffering, not because of desire. When the mind is pure, even actions in the midst of the world remain undefiled. But when the mind is caught, even standing inside a temple, one still carries delusion. We are the same. Some people have left our lives, yet we still speak to them silently in our hearts. Some stories ended long ago, yet we still retell them, explaining, defending, unable to stop thinking. That is when we are carrying the girl across the river without realizing it. Letting go does not mean being cold or indifferent. It means not dragging the past into the present. It means understanding that every event has its beginning and end, and all we need to keep is the lesson it brought. Modern psychology calls this emotional residue, the lingering trace of unprocessed emotion. The brain stores painful experiences as a defense mechanism. If we don't recognize and release them, these undigested memories shape our emotions, causing us to overreact in the present. Buddhism goes deeper. It's not only memory, it's karma. Karma is not punishment, but the energetic imprint left each time we cling. The more we think, retell, resent, or crave, the stronger the chain that binds us. The elder monk let go the moment he set the girl down. That is the wisdom of understanding impermanence. Everything is only a passing moment. Holding on is what creates suffering. In our own lives, we each have a girl by the river. Perhaps she's someone we once loved, someone who betrayed us, or an opportunity we missed. We think we've moved on, but sometimes, one song, one place, one scent, and it all comes back. We don't suffer because of them. We suffer because we haven't learned to let go. We're not tired because of the path. We're tired because we carry what no longer belongs to the present. The Buddha taught, when the mind stops clinging, karma dissolves. When we stop retelling the old story, the energy of suffering fades on its own. Because the girl by the river never truly existed outside of us. She is only an image in our mind formed by memory, emotion, and attachment. Science confirms this too. Those who practice mindfulness meditation can dissolve negative memories faster. When they observe feelings without reacting, the amygdala, the brain's center for fear and anger, begins to quiet down. Letting go is not a single act. It is a process, a little each day, with each breath a little lighter. Try this practice tonight. Think of the person who once hurt you and see them as a passing cloud. It comes and goes. You don't need to chase it away. Just remember, it doesn't stay in the sky forever. When we truly understand that everyone acts from their own pain, resentment fades. Then forgiveness is no longer needed because there's nothing left to forgive. That is freedom. Before you sleep tonight, try this small meditation. Sit quietly or lie down comfortably. Inhale deeply, recognizing that someone still lingers in your heart. Exhale, and imagine setting them down just as the elder monk set the girl by the river. No need to force forgetting or forgiveness. Simply acknowledge, I've carried this long enough. It's time to put it down. Each exhale, a letting go. Each inhale, a return to the present. As you fall asleep, let your breath wash away the echoes of the day, like the river carrying away sand and silt. By morning, only clear water remains, still light and pure. From the story of the two monks and the girl by the river, we realize this. Letting go doesn't mean walking away from people. It means no longer carrying them with old images in your heart. Every relationship in life is a mirror. Some come to teach us love. Some come to teach us boundaries. And some come simply to teach us how to let go. All are lessons in detachment. When we stop demanding others to be who we want them to be, love begins to bloom, because love at its purest arises not from control, but from understanding and freedom. Letting go is not an ending. It is a return to yourself. It is the release of the image you once clung to, so you can see the true nature of love, without possession, without condition, without fear. Just like the Zen tales we've journeyed through, the cracked bell, the overflowing teacup, and the two monks and the girl by the river. Each story is more than a metaphor for spiritual growth. They are mirrors of our modern lives, between partners, parents, and children, friends and colleagues. Every connection is a chance to relearn the art of loving to love, without holding to understand, without judging, to be present, without clinging. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all relationships is this: when you stop demanding, love blossoms. When you stop craving to be understood, you begin to understand others. And when you stop seeking perfection, you finally see the beauty within every crack of the human heart. Letting go doesn't mean you lose anyone. It simply returns you to where you truly belong, the peace within yourself. As tonight's journey comes to a close, remember, every encounter in life is not meant for possession, but for growth. Each person who comes, stays, or leaves brings a lesson in love, in understanding, in release. Some arrive to open your heart. Some come to remind you to set burdens down. And some appear simply to help you see yourself. The Buddha said, "Everyone you meet is your teacher." Not a teacher in words, but in reflection, illuminating the parts of your heart still asleep. When you understand this, you no longer fear losing anyone, nor need to hold on. You simply live fully with compassion, letting connections form and fade, like clouds drifting through the sky, like leaves falling in the wind. Letting go is not coldness. It is loving without binding, helping without claiming, remembering without pain. It is when you look back on an old relationship and feel only gratitude because through it, you learned to love freely. And in that release, love becomes purer, deeper, and stiller. Not the love of attachment or fear, but the love of one who has awakened to this truth. You and I belong to no one yet. In every moment of understanding, we both return to the Buddha nature within. If tonight your heart feels even a little lighter, if your breath feels deeper, if a small corner of peace has opened inside you, then the Dharma has already begun to bloom. Let this calm follow you into sleep like moonlight, gently settling over your soul. Thank you for walking with me through these Zen stories. If these teachings touched you, please subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. Share with someone who might need peace, and leave a comment so we may listen to one another as companions on this path of awakening. Now close your eyes. Let the world wait until morning. There's no one left to blame, nothing left to prove, only a soft breath and a peaceful night in the embrace of stillness. May you sleep deeply and dream of the gentle light of compassion within yourself.